All right, so picking back up from where we stopped, right? We're looking at search and yeah, so we're looking at search and searching and checking. So basically, what we're doing with this is just for us to find out if a code exists, right, or a word, a sentence, right, or a character exists in a sentence. And we have this sentence here, right, or a word here. So we're going to just look at the ones that we can basically see there, which is so we have majorly two, right? So we could have the find and we can have the index, right? So basically these are the two methods we would want to use when we're searching for a character or basically when we're searching for a character or we want to find a word inside a sentence, right? So these are the two methods we would want to use. So if I go through these now, right, so let's see this. So and I say okay, text dot find. So for example, looking at this, it's no s, right, and I put in s. Note that this is going to take in a string, right? So it's going to take in a string. So if I should run this, right, I am going to see a -1, -1, right, which tells that it does not exist. So this is more or less like it's throwing an error, right? But if it does exist, it's going to give us the index position of that character, right? So for example, if I should do h here, which is this, so the index position of h here is 0 to be precise, right? So if I save that, right, and I run it, it's going to give me 0. Okay. Another thing I would want to show, so for example, we have an empty space here, right? So if I do this, if you remember, I said here is not a white space, right? It's a character. So if I save that, right, we're going to see that the index position of these is 5, right? So if we stay 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, right? So you can see that this path here is a character. Now what if I say okay, I want to get for future lab, right? I want to check if future lab exists. Now if I save this, now it's going to give me 6, but note that this 6 it's giving me is basically the index position of the first character inside the word, right? The index position of the first character inside the word. So don't take it that oh, future lab, the whole of future lab, right? No, what it's saying here is the first character in future lab does exist, right? Future lab of course exists here. Now if I should do something like, let's say you, now we don't have this sentence in this word, right? But note that we have, at least we have this here inside this one. So if I save, it's not going to throw an error, but rather it's going to give me the first index position which it identified, right? And that is 7, and we can see the results here. Hope that's clear. Now what if I call z? We know that z does not exist here, right? So it's going to throw -1. So look at the -1 is being thrown. Why? Because z does not exist here, so it cannot find z here. Okay, so the next thing I'm going to look at, right, is when we do index, right? So of course if we say oh, we're looking for the index, right, and we would put a string because it's going to take string. So if I save this now, right, it's going to throw an error at us. Why? Because it doesn't exist again, right? So note, but if I should do f here and I save this, right, now it's going to work fine. What if I say okay, I throw small letter f? Now small letter f does not exist here, so it's going to throw an error, but I wouldn't want this to throw an error, and I want to combine, right? I want to combine code here, right? So something I can do is I could come here and I say dot upper, right? And if I should save this, this would be fine. But note, me calling dot upper here, if I come here now and I do something like, let's say u, remember that that doesn't exist, right? So boom, it crashed. Why? Because there's no uppercase u, so it's going to crash, right? So very important that you know that, and you're able to match that up. But if I should come here and do, let's say, lower, this would be fine. Why? Because it's a lower case here. Now, just to make sure that your code does not crash in any possible case, right? So what we can do under the hood is to come here and say dot lowercase here, so that it doesn't matter what the user passes here, right? Our code would run. So if the user come here and pass upper, right? Just because it's an upper here, so the user passes upper here, our code would still run, right? Because everything under the hood would align, right? So that is it, right? So I know I've spoken too much, right? But just to note this, for the search and checking, we use this tool, which is basically index and find, right? The next important one which I would want to speak about is replace, right? Because often a time when we're coding, we would want to replace word, right? We would want to replace a sentence for another. So let's just continue with this. So we have this text here, and let me remove these now. And of course, let me remove this. In fact, I could just in fact, let me call them back. So what I can just do is just to comment here, but since this is our text, right, I would still want this here and remove this. All right, so for here, like would do, we can just say, okay, what we'll be looking at for this is replacing, right? Or let me just say replacement, right? And of course it only has, I think off my head, what I can think of is just one, which is this replace method, right? So let's say we want to replace, so I could have something like this, right? I could have something like this. So I am replacing Future Lab with Word, so that instead of it saying hello Future Lab, it's going to say hello Word. So if we save this, would get this, and you would find this use case in your development journey, right, where you'll be replacing Word for other things. You're replacing things, right, with excuse me. So you will be replacing words, right? So this is a use case, right, that you're going to use in your journey in coding, right? I think the next thing I would want to show that is very, very important is splitting, right? Because this is something you would use. So let's say splitting and joining. Yeah, so splitting and joining, because you would sure split, you would sure break words, and you would sure bring them back together, right? So let's assume that we say, oh, we have a, so let me just say text to be equals to we have let's say 1, 2, 3, and so on and so forth, right? We have these, right? And I would want to split this word. So let's come here and say print. So I'm going to call my text dot split. Now what am I going to be splitting by? So it's going to take a string, and that string must exist inside this my text here, right? Or this is my string here, so it's going to take that. So if I save now, we're going to see 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, right? So something I forgot to mention at the beginning of all of these, right, it's their return types, right? So note that when we did all of these here, the return type of our case and formatting a string, right? The return type for streaming is still string, right? The return type for searching, right, it's number. The return type for replace is still string, and the return type for split now is a list, right? So you can see it here. So it's going to return a list. It's going to break all of these and turn it into a list. Very, very important, right? Now we can now take this return type, which is a list, this list, and convert it back to a string. That's where join comes in, right? So so for example, whatever this result is, we know that this result is going to give us this, right? So let me just copy this. So if we come here and I do this, okay, so this is our output, right? So the copy of this, that's what I put here. So if I come back here, so let me just take this again, take this, come down, and I say print this, right, which is what I copied, and I do dot join, right? So what am I joining these by? So if I call this comma again and we save, it's going to take us back. Oops, I can see, let's look at these. Oh, so let me just take this off. Right, okay, so let's see. Okay, so we have this, right? So this guy, which is the result of what we're going to get. So let me just put this out. So this is, remember, this is our split result, right? That gives us this. So now we are joining it. Okay, we're joining it here. And what are we joining it by? We're joining it by this this comma, right? So, and that's going to give us or take us back to where we're coming from, which is this. Very important, right? Okay, so note that to add to this is join, right? Note, join takes in an array, right? It's going to take in an array, right? So something like this, and we can have let's say 1 comma 2 and so on and so forth, right? Oops, and so on and so forth. So that's what join is going to take. So join is going to take something like this, right? And remember that this is going to be a string, not a number. Okay, so we have something like this, right? Now what are we joining it by? Because if we just leave it like this, in fact, let me show you guys. Let's see what this is going to give us. So if I come down here and I say print this and we save. Now join, remember that join is a string method, right? So we need a string, right? So let me just make sure that my code is well written. So if we save this now, we're going to get this, like I explained earlier on. Lastly, because I know this video is getting too long, but then lastly, what we're now going to look at is indexing, right, and maybe slicing or length, right? And this is a very important code that you would want to show at all time, right? And basically this is like a property that exists inside a string, right? So if I say print and I do length, and length is going to take in maybe a string. So so let's say I'm passing this text. Now note that this text is this, right? So what it's going to do, it's going to count and return the total number of characters that exist inside of this text, right? And that is 15. So that means it counts from 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9 10 11 12 13 14 15, right? So this is it. So 15 characters, right? That's what exists inside here, right? So that's for length, right? And basically we can use that to find a specific character position, right? So remember that we have this, which is 15, right? So I could come here now and say, okay, let it print. Remember, it's text, and remember, we can go down to the index position of each of these characters. So let's say E, right? And if I save this, right, it's going to load up, and oops, my bad, right? So this is going to take a number, not a string, right? So let's say 4. So it's going to give me this. So 4 is this, right? That means it counts. Remember that it's going to use the index position. So that will be 0. Oops. So that will be 0, 1, 2, 3, and 4, right? So if I do, let's say 6, so that's going to give me this, right? So if I save, I'm going to see my capital letter F, right? So yeah. Okay, so that's it for length and indexing. And I think the last which is very important that I look at, right, which is slicing, right? So let me just call this, and we'll say that will be slicing, right? So how do we perform slicing in Python? Okay, so we already have our text, right? So I can just come up here and say, okay, so let's do print, right? And we'll say text, and I call in a square bracket, right? So I want to get from 0 down to, let's say, 6. So if I save, I'm going to see just hello, and of course with inclusive of this space. So if I save this, we would see hello. If I come down here and maybe I do, let's say, plus, and I say Peter, so we're going to see that space here. The reason why I concatenate to add this is because I want us to see that when we call this 6, it took up to this point here, but we didn't get this, and that reason is because under the hood there's an inclusive and exclusivity that is running here. So the last usually is exclusive, meaning that it gets an invisible whatever value that is here -1. So we're not just going to stay on the 6, we're going to take a one step backward, and that will be 5, right? And remember that this is index position 5, right? So if I come here now and I do, let's say, 5 and save this, we're now going to see, you can see that that space is no more there, which is here. So this is where we're stopping, so it's going to pick from this 0 here or O here, right? Yep. So that is how we perform slicing. So if I come here again and I just do 0, so what this implies is that I did not define where it's going to end, so it's going to pick everything. So if I save this, right, we can, oh sorry, it's just going to pick the very first letter, right, because I did not define where it's going to end. But if I do this, yeah, I suppose, and I just save, right, so it's going to pick everything, right? So if we look from here, we can see that everything is being picked. Now in the same way, if I did not define the beginning point and I just define the end point, so let me say, let me just give it that 4, what that implies is that it's going to pick from 0, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. So meaning it's going to stop here. So if I save these, right, so you can see that, right? So majorly this is how we perform slicing in Python, right? I hope this is clear. You can go through this maybe 1 or 2 more times, right, so that you absorb this. But trust me, as you dive deeper, whether you're going into ML or AI, or you're doing more sophisticated, in fact, as you write more sophisticated code, these are what you'll be using on a regular basis as it relates to string. So it's very important that you understand this, you get used to it, and you digest it, right? So until we meet again, where we'll look at other methods, stay cool, and remember, this is the best place where you can become AI engineer in a very short while. Thank you.